Pricing Masters, your code to unlock the profitability and growth of your company. The best pricing and monetization strategies from ValueShip's experts.
Hello, my name is Chris and welcome into the Pricing Masters.
Hi, my name is Maciej and today we are covering the differentiation and positioning, right? So how to differentiate yourself on the market from the competition, how to analyze your competitors so you can price your product better.
Yeah, because it is always a hot topic, right? I mean, whenever we talk with our clients or with SaaS companies, they're like, yeah, but how my competition is doing that? What prices do they have? Why it's important? Blah, blah, blah. And you know, there is always an anchor on the competition. Maybe let's start with this. Do you think it's even relevant to analyze your competition?
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a good question. So, on one hand, yes, obviously you should analyze the competition. On the other, it matters less than most people think in general. Like, it is not that important. It is important, but the amount of attention we're giving to the competition is definitely exaggerated.
Okay, so we are saying that basically people who are spending the most time on competitors' website are the founders and owners of SaaS companies and ourselves, right?
And pricing consultants. So exactly. So there are these two types of people.
Okay, so it is important. We should take this into consideration. So the big question is how? How to analyze your competition that you actually can derive some insights from it, not some false positive informations.
Sure. So obviously, maybe kind of like recapping from how companies usually do it, right? So we have analyzed our competition, and this is a very often, conversation that you have with the clients, with the SaaS companies in general, when they talk to each other. We have analyzed the competition, right? We already have the analysis, so we can give it to you.
Yeah. 5 years ago, but that's fine.
Yes, well, that's one thing, but also like we have already analyzed it. We know it all by heart. And the thing is, very often, what happens is that they, for instance, yes, they did the analysis of the competition, which is following a couple of slides in Google Docs or whatever, and they're like screenshots of the pricing pages. Like maybe there is some commentary, maybe they have put it in the Excel and tried to calculate anything, but usually what this analysis like have, like where they struggle with is like they cannot find the common denominator between your pricing page and the competitor's pricing page. In other words,
it's actually not the analysis, but data gathering, right?
Data dump, basically.
Yeah, data dump.
Yeah.
So we know what competition is doing, and I totally agree that finding the common denominator is crucial when analyzing competition, especially if you take into consideration pricing. So you need to find a common ground for the competitive analysis. This is the clue, the most important thing.
Exactly. This is the common denominator is critical because mostly the analysis of the competition looks like this. They have 50, the others have 100, so we'll do at 75. So it's
perfect.
More or less like this, like wind finger type of estimates. We try to base our pricing on we want to remain competitive, while in fact, the customers, they are not researching that much as you think they would. Generally, the customer is in the two types of situation. Like one is, will I buy it? And second type is, which one?
Okay, in which situation the competition is more important?
Which one? Where I already want to have a social media monitoring tool, and I'm choosing which one I want to pick. The first one is, do I need this tool? And most situations, there are like different research on that, but the good rule of thumb is like 7-3, 8-2. But in majority of situations, clients are in the will I moment rather than which one.
So you're saying that I've realized a need and I'm just searching for the tool.
But I'm still thinking if I need it or not,
So most likely in this type of situation, the presentation of the value proposition and the entry barrier is something that you need to work
Yes.
on versus your competition. So if you're targeting to this type of the clients, or if you think that most of your clients decided to choose your tool in the we lie situation, I mean, the core things that you need to differentiate versus your competition is actually value proposition and thinking about the entry barrier for meeting their needs. But what about the which one?
So which one is like where usually we try to rationalize the purchasing process. So this is where the RFP comes in, the tenders, right? So where we try to,
Or procurement department or
yes,
something
usually
like
when we try, okay, so we need a tool for X, and we try to look for it, right? And then we and then we are actually comparing prices and everything. The biggest problem the companies have in general regarding the competition is that they do believe that customers are always, they are not stupid, as we have mentioned in the earlier episode, but they are terrible at remembering prices. They're terrible at comparing stuff. And why we know it's like this? Because companies themselves can't really compare themselves properly to the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And why it matters from the pricing perspective, you shouldn't price yourself on the competition. You should price yourself on the value. But at the same time, you need to understand what type of market you're in, what is the status quo on the market. Is there a thing we call a pricing corridor?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to break the pricing corridor, are you doing it consciously or randomly? In other words, you have phones. You have like Huawei, Samsungs, in general phones. Let's say on average they cost like $300.
Mm-hmm.
And average across 8 brands is $300. And then Apple steps in, $500.
And that's feasible, right?
And that's feasible because they are changing the positioning on the market. They are literally showing that they're a premium product. They are trying to change the overall positioning of how valuable you are for the customer. And effectively, this is the same story in the B2B context regarding the relatively transparent tools such as software as a service products.
Mm-hmm. So let's think of how actually how to analyze your competition. So the first thing that you need to know, from my perspective, is actually the entry barrier to your tool. This is very important, right? Because you need to think about the customers who are not super they do not know everything about your product, and they want to test the product. And in case you do not have freemium, you do not have trial, or they want to already invest some money because they have to have the budget, the entry barrier might be crucial for them. And if I am a SaaS company, of course the entry barrier will be different depending on the stuff that I am offering to my client. So I'm coming back to this common denominator. So if I want to compare myself to the competitors, I need to find this common denominator and see what is the entry barrier, what is the minimum price for the value that I'm giving versus my competitors.
So you're
right?
coming
And
to the
this is-
price point,
yes,
right? So
price
the
point.
first thing is how to analyze price points. Usually companies try to either take screenshots of the pricing pages or try to write down the prices. What you need to do is you don't need to have all the price points, but you need to have the minimal plan, the maximal plan, and the mid one. And usually based on that, you can create the pricing corridor where your product stands in.
So compare, if you have plans or if you have users, compare what is the minimum price to actually use the tool, and to compare what is the, like if you have 5 plans, take the average of the middle plans, and then what is the maximum plan. So in this way, you can actually have a common ground for comparison if you are comparing yourselves to the market, right? So to 10 competitors.
And you can see that, and usually what happens is that you can see that on the plan, minimal and medium plan, you're more or less the same, but there are competitors who are charging a maximum for a higher plan. And then you can double click and actually see if what is happening in the, you can actually see what is happening inside these products effectively, right? Which features they have, what type of value propositions do they have. It tells you a hypothesis because, okay, so we have a price, we have a pricing plan, it's substantially higher. So how the feature mix differs, and this is the second story of that I believe is important is the feature composition across different plans, and this is strategically a little bit harder.
Yes, but before we go there, so the features are important, but also within the price point, make sure actually to analyze the price per one thing that for this one core value metric that you and your competitors are offering. So you do not only take, the cheapest plan versus the cheapest plan, but you see of what the cheapest plan consists of, and then divide the price by this core value metric. So for example, if you have in the cheapest plan 3 users, but your competitor have 4 users, I mean, make sure that the common denominator here is 1 user, right? So you divide the price.
Okay, so basically it is about dividing the price point by the value metric that you and competition uses. Most likely you're going to have the same one or very similar one, but to understand the unit economics that is playing in the market field. Am I kind of capturing?
Yes, exactly, right? To make sure that you're comparing apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
That you
very consulting.
Yeah.
You know?
That's actually true. Okay, so we have core value metric, we have price points, we have features.
Well, let's deep dive into the features maybe a little bit. So what I recommend is usually not write down the features, but try to create buckets of the features. So ideally start from your buckets. So always try to start from your features as a baseline and try to map whether the competition has it to your baseline. Not write down all the features. So you need to go page by page, and actually see, okay, they have it. Maybe you need to decipher it a little bit. It may be a problem, to find this apples to apples, oranges to oranges. But this is where the real value of the analysis of the research that you're doing, this desk research that you're doing, actually comes in, where your researcher, your analyst, or yourself are actually, okay, so we are calling it a pipeline, and they are calling it a sales funnel. And okay, but this is more or less the same. And okay, so they have it. So this tells you if the competition has the same functionality as you have, or do they don't have it. In some cases it's very simple, like automation, integration, stuff like this is easy, but within the nitty-gritty details between the products, this is where you can find the common ground. And then based on that, you're actually creating a very nice heat map where you can basically color it on red and yellow and green, where you see okay, so this is where we have the gaps missing, this is where the product gap missing, this is where the pricing gap's missing, and then you can try to navigate the narrative around your product.
And of course, it gives you an additional value, right? Because this is pricing analysis, of course, but it will be helpful for products, it will be helpful for marketing department. So doing this type of analysis give you insights to analyze pricing, have a common ground for this analysis, but also it should be beneficial, your company, it should be beneficial across
So this is obviously the moment when your pricing starts to link to different stuff, right? To your marketing, to your acquisition, to your, this pricing research effectively is a product research, right? It tells you a little bit how to navigate on your roadmap. Then you can move into whether we want to implement these features or not. Don't go within the framework of our competition has it, we need to implement it. This is just a hypothesis of getting deeper that we might need to think if we want to get into this direction. Think of your entire strategy. Don't copy paste the features of your competition. This is all kind of obvious, I think, but I think it's important to emphasize. But this part of the pricing process that is the most, I would say, this is the part of the pricing process that is literally that has the highest overlap between the other functions in the company.
Okay, so we know the prices, we know what is the core value metric, we know the features. I think that what is also important and what you also can get from analyzing your competitors is, so to say, market standards on the within your market, right? So if you are a marketing automation SaaS company, you should think while analyzing competitors, you should go like step back. I know prices, features, blah blah blah, stuff like that. But okay, what is the typical monetization model there? What is typical packaging there? Do they have add-ons? Do they have freemium? Do they have enterprise?
Okay, so you're talking about packaging.
Yes, exactly. So you need to know not only the prices, because you anchor yourself on the prices and you think that pricing, price as a list price is a silver bullet, but not always. I mean, you can learn from the competition. For example, what packaging works the best in a given industry. So sometimes, of course, as you said, example of Apple, it's good to be, disruptor, but in 95% of the cases, if something is established, if 95% of the market is, having the same core value metric, always having freemium, etc., I mean, it's good. It's not the worst thing to follow, in general.
So this is the point of generally the I have recently I've recently read about the discussion. There was a discussion on web about how companies usually try to do something with their pricing, and they come in, we need to change our value metric. Your customers don't want to change your value metric. They want a scalable, reliable model, most likely, and they not necessarily want you to switch anything. And you probably need to play with a certain, market expectations that are happening. If you're offering a CRM right now, in today, you decide that you want to, for some weird reason, you decide that, hey, I will be a disruptor on the
CRM system.
Yeah, there's like Pipedrive, there's HubSpot, there's Salesforce. I will disrupt the market. Good for you, but let's decide that you want to do it. Effectively, there are two market models right now: users, Salesforce, effectively, and marketing contacts, HubSpot model. Simple as that. Only two kind of models. There are some, nuances, but in general, it will be very hard to price on something different.
Exactly. So because clients are already used to that type of model, right? Trying to teach them how the new model works might be challenging. Of course, if you're powerful enough, if you have, perfect product, maybe to disrupt the market, it might be a good idea. But one more time, in 95% of cases, if something is a market standard, it's not the worst thing actually to fit into the market standard.
So the more mature the sector is, the less likely you're going to have a different value metric. Kind of, would it be? Because the market maturity actually matters here. Yes, defines. And many SaaS verticals right now, nowadays, they're already relatively mature industries right now, right? Like survey software, for instance, right? Like CRMs, like marketing automation tools. This is easy.
There has been
where we have the recent, trend and totally different model is this AI thing that we have covered. AI, exactly. So different, where right now we don't know what will happen in the model. Are we going to have this value-based approach, or are we going to have the cost, super high, hardcore cost pressure will give you millions of prompts a year? Unfortunately, I'm rather thinking that this worst thing will happen, kind of knowing what usually happens here. But we're in this kind of terra incognita situation where we don't know what will happen.
This is the perfect example, right? So just to conclude it, if the market is mature, if you see that 80-90% of the competitors are doing the same, you are okay to follow. But for example, if there's a distribution that 25% are doing X, 25% are doing something else, and then 50 are doing random things. I mean, this is also a good thing or a good indicator for you that there is something where you can actually disrupt the market and fit into the client's needs, because clearly they are not yet covered if the market is so diversified.
Sure. So we have price points, we have value metrics that you need to analyze, obviously getting them to the common denominator, starting from you as a baseline. We have packaging, so whether it's good, better, best, all-in-one models, all these things, we have covered this. This is important. And I would add one more layer before we actually move to the second part of what the competition really is. I would say that you also need to research two things, which is like value propositions per various buyer personas. So I think this is obvious, but sounds obvious, but in general, different buyer personas can determine how you're pricing your product, right? So whether we're focusing on freelancers, whether we're focusing on the
SMBs,
SMBs, whatever,
enterprise,
also kind of
right?
what they really need, because a freelancer is not equal to other freelancer to some extent. And important thing is to kind of get in the certain context to also, okay, so we have these buyer personas, okay, they are usually tackling SMBs, they're usually tackling this type of customers with certain needs, certain problems to be solved. So let's try to take their crunch-based data, let's try to check their similar web traffic data to kind of reverse engineer their growth patterns.
The thing is that there are plenty of information actually available on web and available on the market, right? You have G2, you have...
G2 is a good example of.
For example, right, that you have a G2, and if you want to see where your competition is doing well, for example, if you are checking their features and you see, for example, that they have, I don't know, ease of use on the very high level, most likely there is some feature that actually, or there is a trick there that makes them
that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because people think that G2 surveys, G2 responses, the NPS in the G2 where people live in the, I mean, talking about the G2com, G2 crowd. Yes, companies usually ask their most satisfied customers to leave the reviews, but even within the satisfied reviews, there are certain details, especially at certain scale, obviously, that people leave, they can improve this because people want you to improve on it.
Relative, right? Because all the companies, each companies are asking the most satisfied crowd, right? So you actually can compare apples to apples here, right? You're of course comparing very specific crowd. Nevertheless, on the comparison ground, I think it's worth to use not only the quantitative data and quite objective data that we've mentioned in the first part, but also subjective data that Maciej just brought to the table.
I also mentioned, I remember the conversation I had with the G2 sales rep on one SaaS Talk conference. Is like, you know that you have a goldmine of the data that you're sitting on in which you can play with the pricing insights, and they have never realized it, that we are actually using this for, reading these comments. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a cool hack that we are selling to you right now, to literally look at the G2. Now we can even download the comments, purchase the premium account, download the comments, and you can just use the chat GPT to, make the synthesis of the actual sentiment and the comments inside. So the real things that they want your competition to improve on in the product.
And you can build on, comparing this quantitative and qualitative data, or this quite objective, features, stuff like that, versus the comments on G2. You can actually create not only the good competitive pricing strategy, but also competitive pricing roadmap.
Of course.
Not acquiring, but getting clients of your competition to join your tool, etc. Right? So the magic of actually competition analysis is not only using the stuff that is on their pricing website and on their website, but also going an extra mile and trying to find some additional data.
Sure. So analyzing pricing page, we have covered price points, common denominators, value metrics, common denominators, unit economics, packaging, obviously buyer personas, key value propositions. This is on the pricing page. Mm-hmm. On top of that, using traffic data from SimilarWeb or SEMrush or whatever, taking the G2 data, taking crunch-based data, funding, whatever, reports, Googling, whatever you can get effectively. This is one, this is two. And last but not least, I think there's the third bucket of the competition and especially positioning analysis that I would like us to cover, which is what is a competition effectively? Because we have only covered the first column, which is direct competition. Mm-hmm. But there's like indirect competition, there are like substitutes, there are like next best alternatives.
So also who, right?
Who is your competition
Who is your competitor? And this is a funny, not funny case, but this is the case that I'm typically working on, not only in SaaS, but also in SaaS, who to analyze. And of course, you need to analyze your direct competitors, the competitors that are of your size, serving the same persona, that are doing more or less the same as you are doing. But if you're, for example, serving I don't know, SMB market, right? And within each company has certain budget. And if you, for example, are, I don't know, social media tool that optimize social media, you are within the marketing budget of X, right? And this marketing budget can be spent on social media tools, but also it can be spent on marketing automation tools. But the budget, there's only one budget for it. And if you're thinking that while analyzing your competitors, it's only about your direct competition, this is simply not true. You should also scan your indirect competition. So, for example, what companies that are using the same budget, because maybe their share of wallet, so how much the budget of their clients they address is so big that there is no space for you within this market. So it's important to see what other tools your target persona is using, and it's worth to understand how you fit into this budget, so indirect competition, but you also have next best alternative, right?
Next best alternative.
And NBA, not basketball, NBA is also extremely important, because remember that instead of, if you're, for example, saving costs, right, of the company, instead of using your tool, instead of investing in your tool, companies, for example, can hire a person who will do the same stuff manually. And maybe it's going to be faster to adopt. Maybe this person can grow and do the stuff what you are doing faster, better, more qualitative.
Obviously.
And you need to understand that there are some things that also meet the same needs, but other way around, right? Not by SaaS solution, but I don't know, by muscles, right, or brain power of your employee. So while analyzing and thinking, for example, why you can't move the needle, why you can't push your narrative, why the new sales are not going as good as they supposed to, despite you invested so much money into the tool, think of other stuff that you can, your
substitution effectively.
Substitutions, right? Substitute, next best alternative that meet the same need, but can be leveraged, used differently.
But that's interesting. So basically it is about also, and kind of coming to our next episode, which is like differentiation and value, like dollarizing the differentiated value. So this is effectively showing how different in terms of value your tool is versus, you can hire someone to do it for you, but it's not scalable for you. Yes. And I would say there's one layer to it, additional column. So we have direct, this indirect, the share of wallet, and BAs. There are like these edges, like the share of wallet. And there's another column that I would say is the
adjacencies.
Yes, but they are for instance, the companies that you compete with for, let's say, for the attention, for instance. So for instance, I will show it on the value ships example. We are like the pricing consulting company, and pretty much we don't have that much of the direct competition, like on the mid-market space where we are, like on the SaaS space especially, right? But we are literally fighting for the budgets with cold email agencies, with sales and marketing agencies, with content agencies. Why? Because as a company, as a founder of the company, I have a certain budget to grow. I want to allocate this budget efficiently, and I want to ensure that I'll bring more revenue to my business. So who is going to do it? Whether I'm going to do the pricing, whether I'm going to do it with the better Salesforce team, sales coaching or whatever, or actually the content marketing will bring me more leads,
Exactly. So this is why it's so important actually to make sure that you extract enough value, not only to compete with your direct competitors,
that's
easy, right? But also from the substitutes or other companies that are maybe not meeting the same needs, but are within the same budget.
So with this episode, we'll actually share the very simple template so we can feel regarding these 4 layers that we have covered with Chris: the direct, indirect, the substitutes, and the adjacent.
So remember, not only observe your competitors. We have the feeling that most companies are observing the competitors. Make sure to analyze competitors, substitutes, next best alternative, and analyze them in terms of the 4 layers that we've just mentioned in this episode. Thank you very much for your attention today.
you.
And Maciej will share the book recommendation.
I don't have this book with me because I have it on ebook, but it's obviously awesome from April Danford. It's a very good piece about how to differentiate yourself and how to create a better positioning. I think this is a very nice piece, and this is a good example. And on top of that, this is a very good book, not only about pricing. There is a pricing component to it. It's a very good book in general about marketing your product to kind of do what this product needs to do strategically, right? Whether it's want to be a premium cost-saving product, it's a very good piece, and this is a good read that I recommend for today. So thank you. Keep in mind to subscribe to our channel, and see you on the next episode about dollarizing value. We will be calculating the value. This is the type of the content that I mostly love. So take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.